Hello everyone, my name is Laurie Hammer. I'm a nutritional therapist and this is Take Back My Brain. So today we're going to talk about cellular toxicity, and this is an epidemic. Cellular toxicity is definitely a factor in the obesity epidemic as well as the autoimmune epidemic. So if you have either one of those conditions, you need to pay attention to what we're talking about today. We're going to talk about three different things, but today I'm going to talk about lead. Three main toxins that we're going to discuss this week is lead, mercury, and glyphosate. So keep tuning in all week long because we are going to cover those. 287. What does that number mean to you? It should mean a lot because the Environmental Working Group, EWG, did a study and they found in the cord blood of infants that they had 287 toxins, and about 2/3 of those toxins are cancer-causing toxins. So environmental toxicity, toxicity in general, toxicity that invades our cells is an epidemic even with our children. So pay attention. If you have children, grandchildren, nieces, and nephews, this affects our future generations. Also, childhood cancer has increased 67.1% since 1950. We are not winning the war on cancer. All these new therapies are not winning the war on cancer, okay? It has to do with toxicity and how do we decrease toxicity or detox the body. Again, 95% of cancer is caused by diet, which means our food is toxic, and the environment, which means our environment is toxic. So it's not of you're lacking a type of therapy or your body just happened to get cancer. It has to do with your diet and environment 95% of the time, and 2/3 of our children are getting cancer. So let's concentrate on lead today. I want you to tune in tomorrow. We're going to talk about mercury, and on Thursday we are going to talk about glyphosate. But today it's about lead. Where do we get lead? From the environment. Most often we get a lead toxicity in utero. Mamas pass it on to their babies, and this happens for 4 generations. If you are my age and older, we grew up sort of myself on the tail end of the lead generation, but my parents and my grandparents were definitely in the lead generation, where they use lead for everything from paint, in pans, etc., etc. Lots of factories had lead. So that stays in the body. Stays in the body, and yes, you heard me correctly, 4 generations. That means we pass on our toxicity to the next generation. So it has to stop now, right? So I got my toxicity from my mother, my grandmother, my great-grandmother, and my great-great-grandmother. And now I've passed it on to my children, and they've received it up to my great-great-grandmother, right? 4 generations. What happens when we have a lead toxicity? It turns on our bad genes, the genes we don't want turned on, the genes that trigger autoimmune disease, that trigger a weakened immune system, that leave us more susceptible to developing different kinds of cancer depending on your genetics. It's not just genetics, it's what is triggering the genetics, and lead is a key component in the triggering of the bad genes that we do not want to turn on. What happens in the environment? Would you remember Flint, Michigan? It's not just in Flint, Michigan where we have toxic water, where there's lead in the water system. There are 2,000 water systems across all 50 states that are high in lead. And that's what the EPA determines what is a standard lead toxicity. Any lead in your water is not good for the body. Your body likes to hide lead in your bones. That's where a lot of lead is held. So if you did a toxicity test for toxic chemicals, lead may not show up high for you because it hides in your bones. Hides in your bones. So even if you have a little bit amount of lead, just think, what is still hiding in my body? What is still hiding in there? I guess that's all the notes I had on lead today. So we're going to talk about the other 2 toxins, and then we're going to talk about what do we do with it. I am going to run a detox before the holidays group. So be watching for that. That's coming in just a few days so that you can sign up, and there will just be a limited amount of people who can participate because it is the holidays and we want to keep the group really small. Lead, something to think about. All right, have a healthy day and see you tomorrow.